Respected Rajdan sir, Mrs. Gauri Singh, Dr. Barbara Bushner, Mr. Saito, and Ms. Ritulal. Distinguished delegates, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you once again. The topic is net zero and global investments in renewable energy sector. Last 2 days I was working out on data because I was out of touch. But then I thought, after seeing Mrs. Gauri Singh here, what I thought was that how the policy in solar was brought out. And that holds good for new investments that will be coming in hydrogen and other things. What had happened was, then solar was not a very attractive field. I still remember a representative from ADB used to visit me. At that time, sir, the cost was 15 rupees to 17 rupees per unit, or 15 crores per megawatt for solar. And we were putting thermal power plants at 4 crores per megawatt. He was asking me that whether you would lend for solar project. I said, it is not possible. How do you think that if PLF of 16, 17, 18%, that means 4 times costlier. So if you have to put 1000 megawatt, you have to put equivalent of 4000 megawatt of solar minimum. And that means 16 crores you will be putting. So I said, that is who will do that? If you have to put 1000 megawatt of thermal, you are putting 16,000 crores for equivalent amount of solar. I said that is not possible. But see, what role does policy play in this? And generally you see in Government of India, the main policy makers are joint secretaries. And Ms. Gauri Singh was then joint secretary. First thing she did was, she had a direct, that Delhi International Renewable Energy Conference, and she made it a point that we will keep it free. More than 10,000 people visited that time, and no sir, they did it in Greater Noida, sir. Though it was far off, but since the number of people that were expected to visit, and that is when the government and the people and the ministry got sensitized that there is so much of interest amongst the people. Then the other important thing was what policy was framed. At that time, the policy that was put up by her, and I thought it was discussed later also, it was that we will put 100 small projects of 1 megawatt. And another 5 megawatt projects will be bid out. Now the important thing was that why 100 projects? Because they wanted to see what is the interest, and the tariff that was given was 15 rupees or 17 rupees. That was very, very attractive. So she probably at that time had thought that we will not get as many bids. So the only mistake was that we had said it will be on first come, first serve, and it was based on whosoever punches first on the computer. In first 5 minutes, I don't know whether it was even 5 minutes, more than 300 people bid out. And then we had to reject some of the bidders. I mean, the whole process became little tough, but that is all. And we could convince, there were some complaints made, and some CBI fellows came, and I said, well, this is a policy issue. We have nothing to do with it, and we have not met anybody so far. But anyway, they understood that. And that created so much of interest. And today I was sitting here and was realizing that those who had put up 1 megawatt project, lot of them have done backward integration. They have put up, in fact, manufacturing unit for modules also. They have developed their platform, and they have become very, very big. Quite a few companies, I don't want to name them, even Azure was there, who had put their first megawatt. There were a lot of players who became EPC players. And that is how, and then the other good thing was that they said, how will we still work on 15 rupees or 12 rupees tariff. And that was when they said there was some 10% of the thermal power that was idle. And then they said we will bundle this with solar power and give it to the utilities as 4 rupees or 4 rupees 50 paisa. That was workable. Now still, this was perfect. But unless the lenders and bankers understand this, the financing would not happen. And they had to visit all the banks. And in fact, my chairman at that time was not convinced. He said, these projects will not work. That was the type of things that happen when you start a new technology. But eventually, within a year or so, when the projects were put up, things started working. And finally, when people realized that there were no non-performing assets in solar, people started funding those projects. Of course, then the bidding happened, reverse auction happened, and all those things happened. But the difficult portion was when you came out with a policy, and that policy was for 20,000 megawatt. People, and I had spoken in few of the seminars when maybe the government may not like it, but I said, visualizing doing 20,000 megawatt for 2019 when the tariff was 15 rupees or 16 rupees is a much bigger challenge than when you know that the prices are falling. When you know that this has come down to 6 rupees or 7 rupees, of course, it was still ambitious. But you will still realize that this policy came for ground-mounted solar and small solar projects. At that time, she has not come out with a policy on rooftop solar. When the rooftop, and this was discussed thoroughly with all the stakeholders. I still remember even the PPAs, when utilities said that we are not happy with the PPAs were discussed. Bankers said these are not bankable. The PPA clauses were discussed threadbare. And that is how all these smaller issues were churned out. The REC mechanism that had come, that was also discussed thoroughly. And of course, some people did make a mistake. They put the projects on REC when this was clearly mentioned that not necessarily RECs will be bought, and those few projects suffered. But not generally. Generally, things happened very well. And I still remember when the solar rooftop policy for residential consumers was announced, it has not worked. Even today, it has not worked. I mean, we have only put 4 megawatt, 4 megawatt or 5 megawatt. No, not 4 megawatt, 4 gigawatt or 5 gigawatt only against 40 gigawatt that was planned, sir. So, probably something is lacking. It should have been maybe more thought through. I am not criticizing the policy, but utilities were not aware. They take much longer time to put up and sanction projects. So now things have moved, but it has taken much longer time. Had things been put in order, I think the investment would have flown. So what is very important is, like when we are talking about net zero and we are talking about $125 trillion of investment if you have to achieve net zero, then the policies the countries put up, the understanding of the bankers is very, very important. And today in the morning, Dr. Mathur said that only 4 to 5% investment went into Africa. And I was associated with ISA for some time, and we visited few countries. And there I realized that unless the bankers and lenders are keen to finance, they understand that yes, this is going to work, even though their tariffs are still 18 to 24 cents, and I thought it should be a cakewalk financing these projects and they will lap it up. It has taken time. I think it will materialize now with support of ISA, and we have seen globally this is successful and the tariffs have come down. So what I just want to emphasize is that it is very, very important that how the policies and regulatory framework spans out. Once lenders are sure that cash flows will be sufficient to meet the investment, the funds will flow. Now you look at transport sector. Transport sector, the investments had started in electric vehicles very, very recently. And we have seen how exponentially the investments had happened. Now we are in transport sector, the last year investment was around $270 billion. Compared to, till now, till 2019, 2020, the investment in renewable as a whole was only $270 to $300 billion. Last year it has jumped to $370 billion. I don't know what was the major chunk, But see, this transport sector will overtake renewable energy sector. The speed with which it is going, because bankers understand it, everybody understands there are no risk in financing electric vehicles, electric buses, they run, the batteries can be replaced. So it is basically the risk perception and what the risks you foresee. Now we are talking about hydrogen, the next big thing. Unless the right policies come, because there are a lot of developers who have been discussing with us, we have been talking to fertilizer units, but the point is, what is the incentive for them to go to green hydrogen? Unless that incentive is built up, there will be no market. And that is very important at the policy level, at the regulation level, to understand that initially, unless you give them incentive, which gives scale, and then the prices come down, unless you give them. And in the mornings, I think I will just, because this is, I would like to mention here, sir, Honorable Minister said that at that time we had not thought about manufacturing. Some 2-3 state-of-the-art plant had come. Indo Solar was there and 2-3 plants had come. And at that time, the new minister had come and he has also asked that why we are not supporting manufacturing. And I said, sir, they will not be able to compete on prices. They will become non-performing assets very, very soon, because China was producing and reducing costs, which was not possible for India to do at that time. Now is the time, and now also we are able to do it because we are putting 40% customs duty. Had that been put at that time, it would have been different, but then we would not have seen the success of solar mission. Then the solar projects would not have come, because then the tariff would have been, or the government would have to support. All this came without any much big support from the government, because only 1 megawatt projects, only 100 megawatt projects, the support had come. Subsequently, there was some viability gap funding for 5 megawatt projects. And after that, the projects were on their own. The private investment, bankers, and the projects were done. The government did not have to put in much money. So it is very, very important that if you have to see investments going up, the right policies, those countries have to come up with the right policies. The technology has to be, people should be sure of the technology, then only the investment flow. That is very, very simple for any sector. And this being the sunrise sector, and we know there are only three sectors primarily. Today we are seeing renewable energy, transport, and green hydrogen. In 2 sectors, the investment would flow in. The only sector that is left is hydrogen and green hydrogen. Today, only 5% of the total hydrogen that is being produced is green. I don't know, it is even less than 5%. And going forward, how will we be able to convert grey to green, and how will we shift the market? We will have to see, and policy and regulation is going to play a very, very key role in this. And then the investment will flow in. Earlier, people used to also ask, how will we manage whether we will be able to invest $15 billion? Last year, $15 billion were invested in renewable in India. Nothing happened. I said there are large organizations which will be shifting their funding from fossil fuel to renewables. It will be much easier. Now tomorrow, if we have a target of 500 gigawatt, we want to put in, we will have to invest $30 to $40 billion. Today, nobody is asking whether this type of investment will come. Today, the risk premium on renewable has come down below thermal. People are lending at 9%, 8.5%, 9.5%. So that is the difference that we have seen, and thanks to the policy that was initiated by Madam here, I must congratulate her. She has got this award today. She should have got it 10 years back probably, but then she has shifted to IREDA. But this is what the role policy and regulation plays in investment, and that was the point. I had a lot of figures. I think you can all go and check the figures. There are other speakers who will be talking about it. So I thought I'll address the major issue that we face in investment, and that is what, and a very, very little this thing gathering, I could talk about it. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.